Hey, hi all. In this video, we will discuss about annotations. So, what are all the different annotations which we have in Salesforce? So, basically, we use annotation in Salesforce while doing development in Apex. Specifically, in some of the classes, we can define a class and a method in that particular class. We can annotate that particular method in a class with an annotation. So it will have some attributes or elements for that particular annotation, and then we can use it accordingly. So let's start. So what is annotation? An Apex annotation defines the way that a method or a class is used in the system. Annotations are defined with the initial symbol that is the symbol that is @ symbol followed by the appropriate keyword. So these keywords are reserved keywords. You cannot use anything like means like you cannot define any annotation as a custom. You have to use that particular annotations which is there. Uh, the name should be proper and it will be as per the documentation provided by Salesforce. To add an annotation to a method, specify it immediately before the method or class definition. So as you can see in this example, we have this is a class name, that is my class. Then we have @future. This is an annotation. So this is an annotation. Then we have this particular method, that is my method. We are passing string a. So now this particular method is annotated with @future, and it will work in that particular manner. Other logic will run in that particular manner, that is in the future context when the variables will be free, or sorry, when the resources will be free, then that particular code will run or execute. Apex supports following annotation, that is aura enabled. It is used when we are calling something, we are using, or when we are calling data or something in aura components, or in lightning web components also. When we are calling data from server calls, we annotate that particular method with aura enable. Then deprecated, I'm not very sure of. In the later part of the video we will discuss about that. Then we have future, invocable method, invocable variables. Invocable method we majorly use when we call something, or when we call a particular Apex class from process builder or flows. And then we have Json access, read only, remote action, test setup to set up the test data, test visible. If that particular variable should be visible in the particular, it should be visible in the test class, or whenever we are writing the test. Then we have REST annotations, some of the REST annotations for API communication to another system. So let's start with aura enabled. So aura enabled annotation enables client side and server side access to an Apex controller methods. Providing this annotation makes your methods available to your Lightning components, both Lightning web components and aura components. You can improve runtime performance by caching method results on client by using the annotation @ aura enable. This is an annotation, then cacheable true. It's a property to that particular annotation, so it will catch all the all the things which are coming from that particular controller method. And in the future, if you are again calling the same method, it will get the data fast from that cache. You can use the annotation aura enabled cacheable equal to true, scope equal to global, to enable Apex method to be cached in a global cache. So as in this example, you can see this is an annotation. Then we have public static list. So the return type is list, and we have this method name is get option. Then let's select options new. Then all the options will be returned, and then we can pass this options to one of like Lightning Web component or Aura components in Salesforce or in Lightning. So this is how we can use this aura enabled annotation. So whenever we are trying to export, or we are trying to get data into aura components or Lightning Web components from a controller or from a server call. At that time, we annotate that particular method which we are calling in that particular class with @ or enable, so the data will be accessible in that particular Aura component or Lightning Web component. Deprecated annotation is used to identify method classes, exceptions, enums, interfaces, or variables that can no longer be referenced in subsequent releases of the managed package in which they reside. So if there is any particular updation from Salesforce, like this particular variable or this particular data type will not be cannot be used after this particular release, then if it is used in some of the managed package, then that particular method or then that particular variable will be annotated with @deprecated. This is useful when you are refactoring code in managed package. As the requirements evolve, new subscribers cannot see the deprecated elements, while the elements continue to function for existing subscribers and API integrations. @deprecated is the annotation, and global void any method you want to deprecate it, then you can just annotate it with @deprecated. Then we have future annotation. Future annotation is used to identify methods that are executed asynchronously. Future is an asynchronous. We have two processes, that is synchronous and asynchronous. So future is asynchronous process, so it is executed asynchronously. When you specify future, the method executes when Salesforce has available resources. So it will just check for the resources. If they are free, no transaction is running, then it will run that particular logic or method which is annotated with @future. For example, you can use the future annotation when making a asynchronous web service call out to an external service, because you are not very sure like when you will get the response from that particular system. Without the annotation, the web service callout is made from the same thread that is executing the Apex code, and no additional processing can occur until the callout is complete, because it's a synchronous processing. Methods with the future annotation must be static methods. So there is some thumb rule to that. Like if you are annotating anything with future, then that particular method should be static, and the return type of that will be void. The specified parameter must be primitive data types, array of primitive data types, or collection of primitive data types. Method with the future annotation cannot take S objects or objects as an argument. So as you can see, we have to allow callouts in a future method. We have to just specify one of the attribute of that particular annotation, that is callout equal to true, to make the callouts from that particular future method. The default is callout equal to false, which prevents a method from making callouts. At the future, we have this particular annotation, and then we have set callout equal to true, public static void, because static should be, the particular method should be static and the return type should be void. If you are annotating that particular method with future given, do call out from future, and you can add your logic in that. Then we have invocable method annotation. We use invocable method annotation to identify methods that can be run as an invocable actions. Invocable methods are called with REST API and used to invoke a single Apex method. Invocable methods have dynamic input and output values. So as we know that we can call this an invocable methods from process builder or from flows. So we just pass the dynamic record value. We pass it from the process builder to that particular class, and then that particular class runs. So that's why we can pass the dynamic input and we get the dynamic output values or the output values. Public class account insertion @invocable method. The method label will be insert account. Description you can define it. Category will be account. Then you can define the logic like public static list of IDs, then insert IDs, and then database.save result. You can get the success and the error results, and according to the business logic you can implement. So basically we can annotate a method with invocable. We can set these attributes of that particular annotation, that is label, description, category, and then we can define our logic. So basically we can use this method when we are calling it from majorly from process builder or flow. Now the process builder will be wiped off from Salesforce ecosystem. So flows will be there. So we can call the flows from this particular invocable methods. Invocable variable annotation. Using this annotation to identify variables used by invocable methods in custom classes. So the invocable variable annotation identifies a class variable used as an input or output parameter for invocable methods invocable action. So any invocable method is calling particular variable. That variable should be an invocable variable. If you create your own custom class to use as the input or output to an invocable method, you can annotate individual class member variables to make them available to that method. So for an example, we are having a custom class. So the name of the class is convert lead action. Then we have invocable method that is label equal to convert leads, and this whole method is there. Then we have global class convert lead action request. Then we have variable, that is invocable variable required equal to true, that is global id lead id. So this is the required field for, and we have used this invocable variable here. So now this we can use in any one of the invocable method where we want this global id of, that is lead id. Global is the access specifier. This is data type. This is the name of that variable. Next is test annotation. So using the at the rate is a is test annotation to define classes and methods that only contain code used for testing your application. So if you are familiar with the test classes, so you will be pretty much you will be pretty much known about like at the rate is test, why we use it. So the at the rate is test annotation can take multiple modifiers within parentheses and separated by blanks. Classes and methods defined as at the rate is test can be either private or public. They cannot be global. Classes defined as is test must be top level class. So for an example, we are writing a test class for an Apex controller. Then the first line will be at the rate is test. Then it will treat this particular class as a test class. Then you will get that particular run test button. Public static void, create test accounts. Then you can have multiple methods. You can annotate the methods with at the rate is test to define that particular method as a test method. So in that manner you can do, but the basic rule is if the class is at the rate is test, it's a test class, then only you can have at the rate is test as a method. Otherwise it will throw an error. JSON access annotation. The JSON access annotation defined at Apex class level controls whether instances of that class can be serialized or deserialized. If the annotation restricts the JSON serialization and deserialization, a runtime JSON exception is thrown. If we are getting data from third-party system and if we are trying to deserialize it, but this annotation is set to false for that particular deserialization, then we will get that exception. You can specify one or both parameters, but you can't specify the annotation with no parameters. The valid values for the parameters to indicate whether serialization and deserialization are allowed. Never is never allowed. Same namespace allowed only for Apex code in the names in the same namespace. Same package allowed only for Apex code in the same package. Impacts only second generation packages. Then always allowed for any Apex code. So JSON access we have. Then we have serializable equal to same package, deserializable equal to same namespace. So these are the attributes which you have to set: never, same namespace, same package, or always according to your requirement. Namespace accessible annotation. The namespace accessible makes public Apex in a package available to other packages that use the same namespace. Without this annotation, Apex classes, methods, interfaces, properties, and abstract classes defined in a 2GP or second generation packages aren't accessible to the other packages with which they share a namespace. Apex that is declared global is always available across all namespaces and needs no annotation. So if you define anything global, it is present globally. You don't have to annotate it. Okay. Then in this example, a namespace visible Apex class. So a namespace accessible public class might class private boolean bypass FLS. A namespace visible constructor that only allows secure use. So in this manner, you can define according to your requirement. Then we have read-only annotation. The read-only annotation allow you to perform less restrictive queries against the Lightning Platform database by increasing the limit of number of returned rows for a request to 10 lakh. The annotation blocks the following operations within the request DML operations calls to system.schedule and enqueue asynchronous Apex jobs. The read-only annotation is available for REST and SOAP web services and the scheduled interface. To use the read-only annotation, the top-level request must be in the scheduled execution or web service invocation. For example, if Visualforce pages calls a web service that contains @read-only annotation, the request fails because Visualforce is top-level request, not the web service. For an example, we have global class, that is my schedulable class implements schedulable interface. Then we have this particular annotation, global word execute, then we have logic to it. So all the things which are running, they will be read only in that particular method or in the execute method of that interface. Then we have remote action into annotation. Remote action annotation provides support for Apex method used in Visualforce to be called via JavaScript. This is process often referenced as JavaScript remoting. Add the Apex class as a custom controller or a controller extension to your Apex page or to your page. That is Apex page controller, my controller, and then an extension to that. In your controller, your Apex method declaration is preceded with the remote action annotation like this. So you can use remote action whenever you want to refer JavaScript in your particular code Apex methods. Then we have suppress warnings annotation. The suppress warning annotation does nothing in Apex but can be used to provide information to third-party tools. This is not mostly used. That is suppress warnings annotation. Test setup annotation, as its name suggests. Methods defined with test setup annotation are used for creating common test records that are available for all test methods in the class. Test setup methods are defined in a test class, take no arguments and return no value. So it is basically at the rate test setup, then you have method, then you set up all the test data in that particular method. Test visible annotation, as its name suggests, the test visible annotation is used to allow test methods to access private or protected members of another class outside the test class. These members include methods, member variables, and inner classes. This annotation doesn't change the visibility of members. With the annotation, you don't have to change the access modifiers of your methods and member variables to public. If you want to access them in a test method, for example, if a private member variable isn't supposed to be exposed to an external class but it should be accessible by the test method, you can add the test visible annotation to that particular variable definition. So for an example, this is a test class. Then we have this particular record number is for an example in our class, the record number is private. So to access that, we have to annotate it with @test visible. So this is private. So to access it, we have to use this annotation. Apex REST annotations use this annotation to expose an Apex class as a RESTful web service. Read-only REST resource URL mapping, then the URL where you want to hit the data, HTTP delete, HTTP get, patch, post, put. Delete is for deletion, get the records, patch is for updation, post is to post the data to third party, put is update, I think so. There are two, patch and put, I'm not very sure of. So in the coming slides, I will let you know when we reach HTTP patch and put. So resource annotation is used at the class level and enables you to expose an Apex class as a REST resource. The URL mapping is relative to, means like whatever URL you want to hit. The URL mapping can contain a wildcard, that is asterisk. The URL mapping is case sensitive. For example, URL mapping of my URL matches a REST resource containing my URL and not my URL, means like it is case sensitive. So the small or the means the your what is the what we call it, it's the uppercase or a lowercase of that particular character, it also matters. To use this annotation, your Apex class must be defined as global. So the first of all, your class should be global. Then if you are annotating it with REST resource, your mapping should be concise and clear, like where you want to hit it or where you want to proceed that data to. Global class, then the test class, and then all your logic will be here. HTTP delete annotation is used at the method level and enables you to expose an Apex method as a REST resource. This method is called when an HTTP delete request is sent and deletes the specified resource. To use this annotation, your Apex method must be defined as global. So as you can see, we have REST resource here, then we have URL mapping. Then now we are using HTTP delete to delete this part to do delete operation. Then there are some REST requests, REST response. Then we will get the account ID and then we can query and then we can delete that particular account. So we have to define it with HTTP delete. In the same manner, when we want to get the information, at that time we have to use @HTTP get, and HTTP patch we use is called when a patch request is sent and updates the specified resource. So when we want to update anything, then we send it @HTTP patch, and all this REST annotations we can use if that particular class is specified or defined as a global static. The method should be global and it should be static. So in the same manner, we can update any record. We will just get the number or ID of that particular record which is existing in the system, what we want to update. Then we can just assign it and then we can update that particular record. In the same manner, we have HTTP post annotation. As its name suggests, this method is called when an HTTP post request is sent and creates a new resource. So post is basically to create a new record in the system. So as you can see, the method should be global and static, and there will be a REST resource, the URL mapping where it want to hit or where from it will get the data. In the same manner, HTTP post we will pass some of the variables which we want to create, like name, phone, and website. Then we will just assign it to the account name, phone, and website, and a new particular account ID will be created, and that will post or that will be created in the system. HTTP put annotation, it's used to create and update. So patch is only for update, put is for creation and updation of the specified resource. So we will just we have to just give this annotation like HTTP put. The REST resource and URL mapping will remain as it is. Means like we have to have that particular URL mapping where we want to hit that data or where we want to get that data from, on which particular record we want to do an update operation. Then your method should be global, static. In the same manner, whatever value you want to pass, name or any this in this case we are passing annual revenue, then we will set that fields and then we will update it. So in HTTP put you can create the data, you can update the data, but in patch you can only update the data which is existing in the system. So so in HTTP put you can only you can create and update the data, but in HTTP patch you will only be able to update the data. Thank you. That's all for that. Annotations which we use in the Salesforce. In the upcoming videos we will use some code or some developer console exercises on this. Thank you. Have a nice day.